Good afternoon, everyone. Rich Swerbinski with the Mortgage Collaborative here with the rundown with Rob and Rich. We just started broadcasting live and we'll give everybody a moment or so to get logged on and we'll go ahead and get started with today's program.
You know what I find funny, Rich, is that on my screen here, I see Tracy. She must have had an old login. She should just turn the camera on.
Right, exactly.
She hasn't even muted herself.
Maybe she's intimidated by your business attire.
So let me tell you about this business attire. So I just got back from a business trip to Atlanta.
Oh, there you
Actual business trip to Symmetry Lending, which is for lack of a better term, a wholesaler's wholesaler. They focus on HELOC loans for mortgage brokers, mortgage bankers, credit unions, banks across the nation, and they only do HELOCs. And so they provide a good product for lenders out there who are looking for an alternative to a jumbo product. They can do it. You can do a conventional conforming loan and a HELOC with the same guidelines as a conforming conventional loan. So they're a growth story.
The name though, was it Cemetery Lending?
Symmetry.
Oh, Symmetry. Okay, I was going to say that's a questionable name decision.
No. Although that reminds me of Cemetery Ridge. So yeah, anyway, good company.
Excellent. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Friday. This is Rich Swerbinski with the Mortgage Collaborative here with the rundown with Rob and Rich. And I want to thank everybody for joining us. We do this every other Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Just kind of a humorous view of what's going on in the industry. And, and Rob trying to make me look bad with the business attire. I got the Patagonia hoodie on and he ran back and put a suit coat on. So, but you were on a business trip. So that's, you just kept the suit on.
Plane.
There you go. Just off the plane. All right. And, I was going to start by asking you if you had anything fun planned this weekend, but how can I not start? What is that? Like a sperm sculpture you got in the background there?
Oh boy, we're going down that path pretty early in the show.
You drink very large bottles of wine?
Exactly. This Magnums. Interestingly enough, this is actually kind of a junkyard piece of art. In Santa Fe, a while back, walking by a gallery, and the gallery or whoever owned it had a big pile of these things next to the gallery, and we said, "What are those?" And the owner said, "Well, those are actually they were used by the cavalry. They were actually upside down back in the 1880s, 1870s, 1880s, and when they were out on the plains and they needed to form a corral, they would literally screw these into the ground. Like I say, these are upside down. Screw them into the ground and thread the rope through those little openings there and form a corral for their horses." And so this particular gallery somehow had bought, 1,000 of them or something. And so this artist, it wasn't very expensive either, I'll tell you, but he makes these like statues out of these are rusted, 1880s metal. So I thought that was fascinating. I was trying to figure out a tie-in to mortgage banking and residential lending. But maybe the old 1003 will become work of art at some point. But anyway, that's what these are.
Well, there's already 3 or 4 like screw that sculpture jokes in the chat.
No
So
doubt. No doubt.
really no tie to the mortgage industry, but you've got like, exquisite sculptures in the background in the sport coat. I've got the Patrick from SpongeBob drawing and the Patagonia hoodie. So, but moving to the actual mortgage industry and outside of screw jokes, or if you want to make more screw jokes, as always, anybody's participation welcomed, encouraged in the chat, the Q&A. We're happy to incorporate it into the program. And this is the Rundown with Rob and Rich. Let's start with the wholesale wars. So, this rivalry between Rocket and United Wholesale, this is kind of getting out of hand. Delayed, of course, United Wholesale with the bend the knee or you can't do business with us addendum. And then Rocket comes out yesterday and sponsors the Michigan State basketball team, which Matt Ishbia played for. And now they are MSU basketball brought to you by Rocket Mortgage, which has to just drive him crazy.
Well, I don't think he would ever admit it. It is truly there's some saying about when the gods fight, the people suffer or something like that. And lightning bolts and thunder, thousands of years ago were thought to be, the gods fighting with one another, and the people on earth would suffer through the lightning and fires and so forth. So it is very interesting what's going on. I've heard just a wide range of comments and wide range of emails. And the latest round is with regard to this sponsoring of teams. But what is going on for people on the phone or people on this call is suddenly yet another example of the broker channel, the wholesale channel, raising eyebrows, and we certainly don't want to go back to what was that movie, The Big Short? Is that the movie with the brokers down in Florida or something and doing stated or whatever those guys were doing in the movie? We don't want to go back to those days. I think that brokers, I'll say this till my dying day, but there's a lot of very smart brokers out there or originators who become brokers, and that's the channel they choose, and they continue to help their clients, and they're smart, savvy, entrepreneurial business people. But when you have public squabbles like this, and it's not even, it's escalated past the squabble phase, when you have publicly saying either do business with me or else, and I'm sure Matt is backed up by a team of attorneys, more attorneys than I have at my disposal, so I'm sure it's legal. But the question is, does it make business sense? And obviously, it's hard to argue with Matt's business sense, just like it's hard to argue with Dan Gilbert's or Steve Jacobson's or Anthony Shea or Stan Middleman. All these guys, Kevin Parr, these top wholesalers are smart guys and gals. And this really kind of casts a little bit of a shadow on things. So you have that going on in the upper echelons. And right now, you have a full-scale price war. I know that when Matt came out with that announcement, they improved their prices dramatically. Now, granted, we went through 2020 with some very nice margins and very nice volumes, and everybody has seen that. And we could be looking back at 2020 saying that was the best time to be in residential lending in the history of the world. I could easily see that happening. Those margins were thought to eventually deteriorate as volumes slowed a little bit, as we all knew they would, and as rates crept higher, as we all knew they would. And so companies will start eating into their margins in order to keep the wheels greased, as it were. But what is going on now in the wholesale channel is price competition, and so you have the Freedoms and the Loan Depots and the Plazas and the Sierra Pacifics and the Orions kind of dragged into this price war just to maintain market share in the face of United Wholesale and Rocket fighting it out and cutting their margins. So yeah, it's not necessarily a good thing, Matt. I've heard brokers on both sides saying, we're a United Wholesale shop, and I'm really glad Matt did this, and he's looking out for the broker. And I've had people who aren't fans of United Wholesale write to me and say this is like third grade playground tactics, and what is Matt thinking, and so forth. So brokers are on both sides of the fence. They will continue to be on both sides of the fence, and that's what makes America great, I guess. But it is interesting, it gives us something to talk about, right? But I'm not sure of the long range benefit of it. I'm sure Matt thinks there's long range benefits, so good for him. But we'll see where it shakes out. Rich, what are you hearing with the Mortgage Collaborative clients? What are they saying about it?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have any broker members, but just talking to the member base this week, and just keeping my ear to the ground. I think you're right. Like, from the broker world, I think it's split. And Ishbia is clearly not a dumb guy. I do think this is a not smart tactical move. And I think part of it is like UWM's early success and them making a name for themselves largely was due to him kind of picking these public fights with Rocket. I think helped put them on the map a little bit. I think that strategy was smart in the earlier years. And then you kind of fast forward to today. I mean, Rocket really wasn't even in the wholesale business until like 3-4 years ago. They started to get in it. I almost feel like he's goaded them into it. Like, sometimes, careful what you wish for. I think what I hear from mortgage bankers is just what you kind of alluded to, is their concern that, the broad brush. Our industry is a very noble one. In 07, 08, I think we still suffer from, people's perception of the mortgage industry. And it's come a long way. You bring up, I remember being, at whatever parties with people that aren't in the industry in 2010, 11, and saying I was in mortgage banking and feeling bad about saying that. I don't feel that way anymore, but this is what people hear. This is what makes the headlines, stuff like this. And I feel like, this public squabbling, especially because the hallmark of the broker channel is better price, a vast amount of lenders that you can choose from, and it'll ultimately always deliver the best price to the borrower. So for the number one market share wholesale lender to come out and say you can't use the number two and somebody that could be emerging in that space, it's petty. It kind of defies the general message of the broker community in general. So
yeah, we had the broker channel. Mortgage brokers have been on a roller coaster. And then we had the whole Anthony Casa video series of, just more squabbling and talking about Aaron's wife, in a very public way that was shameful, frankly, which raised a lot of eyebrows and once again cast a shadow on that channel. But I would say that the vast majority of brokers are, brokers may benefit from the price war, their consumers may benefit from it, but really the question is what happens next? Is it good for the business? And I remember back in 2012 or 14 when the CFPB started to gain some strength. Much of the communication I had, or when I travel somewhere and speak to brokers, and they were saying, well, the CFPB, we may as well paint a big target on our back. The CFPB is gunning for us. And I would tell them, I don't even know, I'm not quite even sure the CFPB knows what a mortgage broker does. I'm sure they do, but this doesn't really help the situation if the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, which I'm sure we'll talk about on this call because you've been spot on with your thoughts on the CFPB and where it's going. But with the CFPB hearing and seeing and reading about this kind of thing, probably doesn't bode so well. But Matt, on the other hand, would say, well, look, the consumer is going to benefit because, we offer great pricing and great products, and the brokers have a choice out there, and brokers, they can choose to do business with us and, dozens and dozens of other wholesalers. They can choose to do business with Rocket/Quicken and Fairway, and dozens of other brokers. So we're not constricting anything. It's interesting. I know that Fairway is mainly known for its retail presence, but their wholesale channel, with the number of brokers signing up within the last week, has been off the chart. I mean, Fairway is kind of tagging along here with the publicity saying, yeah, we were never, a huge wholesale contender. But now, thanks for the publicity, Matt, away we go. So, good for Fairway.
Yeah, I made a couple lighthearted jabs at the whole situation on LinkedIn this week. I got so many messages from Fairway employees, just finding it humorous and saying that essentially that, like, it's amusing that we got dragged into this. It's been great publicity for our wholesale channel. I knew they had a wholesale channel that was very, very small. But yeah, it kind of put it on the map this week for sure. But I mean, another just, kind of hypocritical part of the whole, if you do business with Rocket or Fairway, you can't do business with UWM thing is, I mean, many, if not the majority of wholesale buyers also have retail operations and are on some level doing the things that UWM is accusing Rocket and Fairway of. The other part of it to me that's kind of stupid and crazy is UWM's whole model is broker. They're now a public company. Their books are open. We all know that channel has lower margins, obviously, than the retail channel. Rocket, Fairway have these huge, robust retail channels with much higher profit margin in those channels. If they get sucked into a price war on wholesale and got to go out and buy loans at little to no profit margin, it's going to be buried in their financials, relatively speaking, as to where UWM, that's all they do. So this could be a little wake up call, like, welcome to the world of, like, you no longer fully own your company. And, ultimately the people that own your company, own your stock, are going to have an opinion on things that you're doing. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out as well.
Yeah, you bring up a good point with different companies offer different products, different channels. And last Friday in my commentary, I mentioned, poor Loan Depot and CMG and Sierra Pacific and Flagstar, these other companies that have a retail presence and a wholesale presence. They have their retail presence to rely upon. And if they get into price war on their wholesale channel, well, they've still got retail coming through. And you're right, United Wholesale is wholesale. So as is Rocket, Quicken, it's predominantly retail and direct to consumer. Some of the harsher critics of the move said that Matt just wants every broker out there to be his wholesale or his retail channel. Matt is treating us like his retail branches, which was an interesting comment. So we'll see where it shakes out. It's like I said,
right? He's giving them the software. He's saying you can't work with the second biggest, the lenders that we say you can't work with. I mean, that's essentially, it's a fair way to look at it for sure.
Yeah.
So, well, it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. But, another piece of it is, I mean, think about it. United Wholesale has 35% market share of the broker channel right now. That channel is at an all-time high, really, as far as their share of the overall mortgage pie, probably depending on who you talk to, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19%. So to me, it's just like, listen, you are like amazing levels of market share in a channel that is at the highest share it's ever been at. Like, I would be like putting my head down and scheming more behind the scenes to keep, especially being public now, to keep trying to improve your prospects and profits as a company. But We'll see. And yeah, a lot of comments in the chat. Dan Gilbert's also a Michigan State grad, and you got Home Point Financial too, the third biggest wholesaler in America. I've gotten the chance to meet with Willie Newman a couple times over the years, who I don't know, I don't know him well. I just always have been very impressed by him, and just and he, he's got to be just sitting back laughing at all this. But the three big, they're all in Michigan too. It's so funny. It's like this big war in Michigan, all these wholesale lenders. But yeah.
The winter, people get tired of, I guess, the winter come, late February and March. And so they need to do something to spice things up. Yeah, I will, I know Willie, very good guy. I've been to United Wholesale, spent some time with Matt. He and I went to lunch at McDonald's. I like Matt. He's a competitive guy. I've spent time with Dan Gilbert. I mean, not to sit here and drop names, but like I said earlier, that channel and the retail channel, our whole industry has a lot of very smart, entrepreneurial, competitive guys and gals who, they're smart. They figure things out. So, and through it all, who's benefiting, I hope, are our consumers, our borrowers across the nation who can benefit. And so it's important for us to keep that in mind.
Absolutely. Competition, a good thing. The more viable options for home buyers and people looking to refinance out there, it's good for our industry. It's good for America. It's good for housing. So, it's good content for the rundown. So, I don't know what that, we can only have talked about Marcia Fudge for so long today, right?
Do you want to talk about Marcia?
She's a Buckeye and she's from Cleveland. We got to talk about it.
Man, the Midwest is sweeping
taking over the mortgage industry.
Yeah, forget about places like Atlanta or Orange County or Dallas. It's all like the upper Midwest.
Right, exactly.
I've heard good things about Marcia. I've never met her, at least that I know of. I've talked to people who have met her and who are impressed with her, and I think it's a good thing. But like you probably, maybe you've met her, but what have you heard? I've heard good things, but nothing really concrete.
I've heard her speak one time at like an Ohio Bankers League event back in my banking days. And I just know of her. She's kind of a, local political icon. And she's very, very principled, very well respected. Her constituents love her. She was the mayor of a major suburb of Cleveland at a very young age as a minority female, did a great job and parlayed that into, very successful political career in Washington, obviously. When I look at these things, I watch the hearings because I'm interested to hear the questions. And I'm interested to see the results of the vote. She was confirmed by the Senate 66-34, which is, that's almost half the Republicans voted for her. And she is left, very left. So I think that says a lot that she was confirmed that convincingly. I think she's good for America right now in this role. For a couple reasons. And, if you listen to the confirmation or read the transcripts, it's clear her focus, like she is going to be hyper focused right out of the gate in terms of making sure people that were affected by the pandemic aren't further affected, the eviction moratorium, extending that out, and rental assistance for people that are behind on their rental payments, and making sure people that, were affected due to things out of their control aren't kicked out of their homes. The next thing she kind of went to was affordable housing. Anybody that's heard me or seen my ramblings on LinkedIn, that is something I've been a huge proponent of. Just we need more affordable housing stock in America. Like if you're a young family that needs to buy $150,000 home in the Midwest, or what's a cheap house out by you, like 800,000-900,000. It's tough. There's not a lot out there. All these homes that are being built, the new builds, due to lumber prices and regulation, So I think that's something she's going to be a fierce advocate of, really supporting and carrying out President Biden's stated goals to add, I forget how many affordable housing units it was, but I think from those respects, she'll be good.
Yeah, affordable housing. Yeah, as long as it's not in my backyard, right? No, I'm being a little bit facetious there because that's when you look at, and I continue to make this point, when you're dealing with, 70 plus million millennials in their late 20s and 30s looking for housing, and the current construction is, 1.5 million, 2 million units a year, okay, a year, versus that size population. And with the baby boomer generation not really going anywhere, and in fact, a lot of baby boomers probably buying, rental houses as investments because they don't want to put their money into the stock or bond market. It's a very interesting dynamic. You have, I just had this business trip to Atlanta, and you look out the plane window, and you see these huge swaths of just emptiness. So you could say, well, let's put affordable housing out in the middle of northern Arizona or northern New Mexico or so forth, and it's just going to take a while. And I'm all for affordable housing. I've done several events for Freddie Mac and Wells Fargo, Fannie Mae, with regard to affordable housing initiatives and so forth. It's going to take a while to translate that those federal wants and needs and desires with regard to housing down to builders and down to communities and down to counties. It takes a while. And meanwhile, our population continues to grow. So yeah, it's a tough situation. So good luck, Marcia.
I agree. And I mean, and you're right, because anything housing, or it just look at, I remember when Obama came into office, immediately he wanted to try to get Fannie and Freddie out of conservatorship. 8 years later, he left it, which he was never able to get it done, and he deprioritized it a little over the years as well. Trump came in and made it a top priority and brought in the executioner, Calabria, the guy that's going to get it done, right? Even he couldn't get it done. So you're right, to do the things that we need to do in America to help the inventory problem, to help the affordability problem, they're not going to be easy. They're going to take a long time. And I think if you are passionate about those things, you need somebody like Marcia Fudge that's going to come in and just freaking bulldog this stuff and not take no for an answer. I think in some cases where you shouldn't take no for an answer.
Yeah. I wish her the best.
Yeah. So similar topic, next topic, MBA came out this week with their latest forecast, which if you look at it, it predicts the biggest year ever for purchase transactions in our country's history. Now they go on to say that, these targets being met this year heavily dependent on new housing stock being kind of pumped into, the housing framework of America. They mentioned specifically Kenai on the February, March, and April new build stats. So, and I think that's where we're at right now. That if we can get some new stock onto the market, maybe some of these people that are sitting on houses that they haven't sold for whatever reason, that if some inventory can start to bleed its way into the market, that we could have a huge year for purchase. But it's a big if, right?
A huge if. And I know you've talked about this with previous guests and other Mortgage Collaborative Zoom calls, and Mortgage Collaborative is really doing a fine job of those, by the way, Rich. So hats off to you of keeping folks informed. I just don't see the inventory. I just don't see the log jam breaking loose. People are very content with their houses. Have you started the actual search? I know you started the GoFundMe site for your down payment for a house, but have you actually hired a realtor and started to look around at all, or do you just kind of surf the real estate porn late at night?
I mean, you're right. It's like the Saturday Night Live skit. I have, and like I'm a perfect example. Like I'm looking to buy a house now. I need myself, my girlfriend. We have 4 teenagers, so we need a 5-bedroom house, and it has to be in the city that both our kids are in the same school district. And even in times of better inventory, there's not gobs of options there. So we're starting to look at like potentially building now. But then I had to went and visited the one custom builder that's got a lot in the city I live in. And that was where, like, I've heard about the price of lumber. And then I saw it translated onto an offer sheet. Like, and they break it out like, this is why this is so expensive, because I mean, I'm experiencing it right now. There is no inventory out there. Because of that fact, I don't necessarily want to build nor afford to build a big home right now. And the cost of lumber is directly translated back to the consumer. Like, it's listed out, like, dear potential home buyer, we are screwing you over because the price of lumber is so extravagant right now. So very real issues that we have with the housing inventory issue in the country. So
Yeah, on top of that, you have the municipalities, the counties and towns and cities who, for a permit, I don't have statistics and I don't know numbers, but I've heard that the price of the permit process has gone through the roof, because you have these entities, towns and counties and so forth, that I mean, it's a big source of revenue if they can get it. And so you add that onto the lumber, and you add that onto the cost, the labor cost, if you can find somebody to build a place. Yeah, it's just, I just don't see how this is going to be resolved, frankly. And on top of that, Rich, not that you're not special, all right, but you have a lot of people out there who have held their jobs, have kept their jobs, fortunately, through the pandemic. They aren't, we talk about this K-shaped recovery with, part of our population, doing this kind of thing, or at least maintain the status quo. Then the other part of the population, the short order cooks or the maids at the Marriott kind of thing, who are doing this during the pandemic. But the people who are doing this, a lot of people, millions of people around the country are saving a lot of money. The savings rate is over 20% right now. It used to be, 3 or 4% of income was saved. Now it's over 20%. And so it almost doesn't, I won't say it doesn't matter, because it does matter, but it almost doesn't matter if they want a house and they've spent the last year sitting at home, eating, frozen pizzas, or, I mean, hopefully taking care of themselves, but saving money. They're not going out and spending. They're not going to Disneyland. They're not going on cruises. They're not going on vacations to Monte Carlo. They are saving a lot of money. And when you have a lot of money in the bank and you want a home, it's like, I want a home and I've got a lot of money saved up, and I'm going to pay whatever it takes to get, in your case, the 5-bedroom, you and your girlfriend and the teenagers. I mean, you're going to spend that money. And so that is also driving up prices across the nation, and especially in places like, Nashville, the outskirts of Nashville. I mean, Tennessee is a great place to live. It's got a lot of pluses. And so they've seen tremendous growth there. Austin, Texas. Austin, Texas is not the Austin, Texas it was 10 years ago, because it's a neat place. And so people are buying, the homes in those areas almost regardless of price. They're bidding wars. You continue to hear about these bidding wars. So I certainly don't mean to discourage you, but this whole confluence of events or confluence of economic factors are driving prices up, have driven prices up, and I don't see them abating much. I don't see people, I see people continuing to save money. I see people continuing to use their homes as offices, and they want a home office. They may be working from home the rest of their lives. So, I mean, there's all kinds of things going on that really conspire against affordable housing and against first-time home buyers, despite the plethora of down payment assistance programs that are out there, some really neat programs, some lenders specializing in helping young families and so forth. It's just tough to find inventory.
Absolutely. Yeah. Interesting to keep an eye on all this as 2021 plays out, and got about 10 minutes left here on the rundown with Rob and Rich. And Rob, I get a chance to talk to our lender members across the country on a daily basis. You have a vast network of readers and people you interact with. I want to throw some things at you, just I've been hearing, kind of ear to the ground type stuff. And for our audience in attendance, want to hear what you guys are hearing out there in the marketplace, rumors, news, things that could be emerging this year. Some things I've been hearing as of late, top producing loan originators that had massive years last year that are now making moves to kind of start their own mortgage companies, those big $100 to $500 million a year producers, something I've been hearing. M&A. I just think these next couple of years is going to be the biggest M&A years ever for the mortgage industry. When you factor in older business owners that just have made gobs of money, are riding out the refi train and aren't ready for another Democratic CFPB run, that factor combined with how much money lenders have made in general, large lenders going public, raising gobs of Wall Street money to scale their businesses, that you could just see really unprecedented amounts of M&A in the mortgage industry these next couple of years. Some other things I've been hearing, JVs, a lot of lenders kicking the tires on joint ventures that could make sense for them as a way to invest some of those profits of 2020 into their future. What are you hearing? That's some of the stuff I've been hearing these last couple of weeks.
What a fun business. I mean, this is a great business. And I know the last couple of weeks with Tracy King Donadio, and thank you again to Partners Credit for sponsoring those events. I mean, I think that hopefully Tracy found that worthwhile, but I know that we've talked about this on prior episodes. I mean, this is a cool business. I mean, if you're in the auto business or you're in the plumbing business, I mean, this is a fun business compared to a lot of things I can think of that are other alternatives. And once again, as I said earlier, we continue to help borrowers, we continue to help consumers, but all these things that are going on that you just mentioned really make times interesting, and I hope in a good way, because you don't want that old Chinese proverb about may you live in interesting times, which is usually something bad. But it is fun to be in this business, and it's really too bad that we all can't. I hope I'm seeing some green. In fact, I mentioned it in tomorrow's commentary. I'm seeing some green shoots out there with regard to conference activity. I know that the Georgia Mortgage Bankers in May is going to hold theirs, and it's going to be in person. I know that Florida has every intent of holding theirs in June in person. I was just on a California MBA board call yesterday, and the Western Secondary has been moved out to August so that it can be held in person. And so wouldn't it be neat? I really miss getting together with people in the same room and talking about the issues that you just brought up with regard to M&A and JV and so forth, and what's going on out there. The big topic that I've heard about this week, unfortunately, is on the flip side of that. It's not so much fun to talk about. And that is something that was expected from the agencies, at least Fannie Mae. Certainly they made headlines this week by restricting the non-owner occupied and the second home footprint or purchases to 7%, which threw a lot of people in our industry into a tizzy because, first of all, it's rumored, and I haven't seen the stats, but it's rumored that over 50%, excuse me, over 50% of the people selling to Fannie Mae have already exceeded that 7% level. On top of that, you have locked pipelines that are already locked, non-owner or second homes, set and priced to deliver to Fannie Mae that won't close until April. That'll be delivered in May and June. So when is this going to start? And so it's one thing for the agencies to come out with a plan, a statement like that, an adverse market fee which for some reason continues to plague our industry. It's another thing to successfully implement what they want to implement. And I think that the folks that I'm hearing from are saying the implementation in this case, once again, is not good. It raises more questions than it answers. Like, what are we going to, what's going to happen? Is this a roll in the 7%? Is it for the whole industry? First come, first serve, lock in your non-owners now with Fannie Mae, or is it based on company? Is it a rolling total? Is it a total for a calendar year? I mean, there's a lot of questions out there, and I'm sure Fannie Mae and FHFA will spend their time answering those, because it is a concern. And then the question is, if you're a lender, what do you do with that product? Does it now go towards some of the non-QM investors that are out there? Does it go to FHA? Is it just something you say, we can't do it? And so that's, Rich, certainly over the last few weeks, I do think M&A activity is going to heat up. But for now, people are saying, oh my gosh, I've got all this. We've got a lot of pipeline potential out there. We've got a lot of borrowers that we can help. And this announcement about limiting second homes and investment properties isn't going to help those borrowers. And that's where kind of the industry's focus went toward that announcement. So, but I agree. M&A, some other things that are going on there. It's a fun time to be in this business.
Yeah, the investment property thing. I mean, I think that could be the first of, several concerning dominoes to fall, just from the standpoint that, one, the inventory issue in general. If you own, it's like a good time to own investment properties right now, right? So people that own them aren't going to be selling them to primary people. So in theory, the pool of investment property houses will sustain or continue to make up a bigger percentage of the overall housing stock. Number two, and we all remember this from the years after the meltdown, like in times where people feel like values are like you can't count on them, investment properties get slammed. I mean, we all remember the investment property climate from like 2008 to basically 2012 or 13, where they were very difficult to sell. A lot of investors were capping the LTVs at 70-75% and, heavily overlaying them. And if you're an aggregator that just sells to the agencies, and with so much volume last year moved to the agencies because of buyback risk and overlays associated with the pandemic. So you got more business going to the agencies that have now kind of said, hey, we're taking our foot off the gas pedal on investment properties. So we got a lot of emails this week from members like, hey, do you know of any good investors out there on investment properties? I'm like, there's no answer to that. Like, nobody's good on investment properties, and it's over aggressive because nobody wants to get adversely selected and get pummeled with investment, especially if you're just buying loans and repackaging them into securities that go to the agency. So it could really create, my guess is you're going to see the aggregators start to overlay investment properties. It's going to have a ripple effect down, and you could see, a real tightening of the credit box on non-owner.
We need to bring Tracy back to talk about the credit box on non-owners and investment properties and second homes. So anyway, I think we've run out of time yet again, Rich.
We have. Well, this was as always, a great conversation. No shortage of interesting things going on in the industry right now. And, as you noted, it's just never a dull moment in the mortgage industry. And we'll continue to track it all here on the Rundown every other Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. If there's anybody out there that's interested in being involved as a sponsor, we are looking to bring a sponsor into the program. And you mentioned conferences. TMC, we are full blast 100% September 19 to 21, Terranea, California. Posh resort just outside of LA. It's the resort Tiger Woods was driving to when he crashed. I don't know what that means, other than it was interesting to see in the news, but it's ridiculous, and we're gonna blow it out, and it's gonna be an amazing conference. So
Tiger in the tank.
Anyway. Excellent. So, well, thanks again, Rob, for joining me. Thanks again to our attendees. As always, we'll be posting this to our YouTube channel and making a podcast out of it, where I know a lot of you listen. And until 2 weeks from today, we will see you then. And
All right,
Rob,
thank you.
as always, yep, take care.